How did it happen that a seemingly normal, cute TikTok girl killed her sister with her own hands? Make yourself comfortable, friends. We're about to begin. The girl in the photo is Claire Miller, born on January 11, 2007 in the family of Mark and Marie Miller, becoming the second child in the family. Her older sister, Helen, was born in 2002, unfortunately with some physical features that would later be diagnosed as cerebral palsy. I think most of you have at least heard of this disease, but not everyone understands what it is. It is a whole group of diseases of the nervous system that manifest themselves in impaired movement, balance, and body position, and people with this diagnosis need special care. It was a real shock for the Miller family. During their pregnancy, Mark and Mary often heard from their friends something like, "Get ready for sleepless nights," and it was nothing compared to what was to come. When Helen's peers were already playing soccer, the girl could not even go to the toilet by herself. But despite all the difficulties, the Millers didn't give up and gave Helen everything they could to make her grow up as happy and healthy a child as possible. About 4 years later, they decided to have another child, a girl, as you already know, named Claire. As her parents later told, Claire grew up in love and never suffered from a lack of attention, both from them and from her older sister, with whom Claire always had a friendly relationship. But still, due to Helen's health condition, Claire often did not receive the attention she would have liked, and she often felt like number two in a family where most of the attention was given to Helen, understandably because she really needed it. In any case, the Millers really loved their children. Both Helen and Claire, friends and the girls themselves, said so, despite the fact that a lot of time was spent on Helen. The parents didn't ignore Claire. She had everything: appliances, clothes, entertainment, money saved for college, and studying at the prestigious private school, Lancaster Country Day School. She lived a quiet teenage life with all its advantages and, of course, disadvantages. Claire Miller was also very fond of anime, and at the age of 14, her main occupation wasn't studying, but endlessly watching Japanese anime, followed by social media and content creation. Claire had her own YouTube channel with vlogs, and she also shot short videos on TikTok every day. Not very informative, but none of us are perfect. Claire had a lot of fans. A week before, the night that would change her family forever, she had almost 20,000 subscribers, so the average view per video was about 100,000 views. Videos of parodies of her favorite anime characters, or as they say, funny dances, but there were also some that differed from others in their gloom. These videos suggest that Claire was a rather depressed teenager, but in fact the girl became famous not because of TikTok, but because of an act that will cause a lot of pros and cons in court regarding her life imprisonment or even execution. So, it all happened on February 21st, 2021, from morning until night. It was a normal day for the Miller family. First the children had school, their parents had work, in the evening they had a rest. In the end, everyone went to their rooms as usual and fell asleep, everyone except Claire. Without making any noise, very quietly, the girl went downstairs to the first floor, entered the kitchen, took the rubber gloves her mother usually used to wash dishes, and putting them on her still innocent hands, she grabbed a large kitchen knife and went back upstairs. When she got to her sister's room, Claire opened the door almost silently and stepped inside. Approaching Helen's twisted body, she plunged the kitchen knife into her neck without hesitation or doubt. Only then the killer stopped and watched for a while as the blood that had filled her sister with life flowed to the floor. After that, Claire gave up and calmly left the room, quietly went downstairs, and went out into the yard. Later, after the investigation, it turned out that Claire was trying to use the snow that had been lying there for several days to wash away the traces of blood. The investigators were surprised that the girl did not think to wash her hands under running water inside the house. It is assumed that she did not want to wake up her parents, who continued to sleep peacefully, not even realizing that they would never see their first daughter alive again. So Claire continued to stand in the yard and rub her hands in the snow. No one in the world knew what she had done, and in just a few minutes she called the police herself and coldly and emotionlessly told them that she had killed her own sister. The cops arrived at the Miller home within minutes, and what they saw shocked even the experienced officers. The car's headlights illuminated the silhouette of a minor girl who was completely covered in blood, so much that it dripped from Claire's bloody pants. When the police approached her, she said only one thing: "I killed my sister." Her parents woke up from the noise outside and ran out of the house, but they did not understand what was happening. Then one of the police officers came into Helen's room and saw a terrible picture of a kitchen knife still sticking out of her throat. The man tried to save the girl's life, but he had no chance because she was already dead. Despite the fact that Claire immediately said that she had killed her sister, no one believed her at first, neither the cops nor her parents. According to the first version, someone broke into the house and killed Helen, and Claire saw the attacker and was only trying to protect her sister. That's why she was covered in blood. It wasn't long before everyone realized that the young teenager was telling the truth. The evidence was overwhelming, and it was a terrible night for Mr. and Mrs. Miller, as their daughter lay dead with a knife in her neck, and the other was arrested under blue lights in front of the entire street for her sister's murder. According to Pennsylvania law in the United States, any murder is considered an adult crime, but a minor can still appeal to have the case transferred to a juvenile court, and that was the whole point of the legal battle with Claire, to find out whether she should be tried as a teenager or as an adult. In the first case, theoretically, she could even avoid punishment or be limited to house arrest, while in the second case she could face life or even the death penalty. As you remember, the events took place in February 2021, and only in March 2023 were new details of this case revealed. After studying thousands of messages that Claire sent to her friend, the prosecutor's office found dozens in which she openly expressed a desire to physically harm someone. Perhaps such an easy target as her disabled sister was a very tempting option for her, because Helen, due to her health condition, was practically unable to resist. Also, her comment about food characterizes her as a cold-blooded and ruthless person. Claire's words were witnessed by police officer John Martin. When he brought the girl a McDonald's meal before the trial, she replied, "Oh, McDonald's, I would have killed someone earlier if I knew I was going to be fed McDonald's." Which sounds rather creepy in the context of the fact that she really killed a person. In addition, there is a version that the murder was committed solely for the sake of her parents' attention, for which Claire had to compete with her sister, which the investigation has not been able to confirm or deny at this point. Despite all the evidence and the lack of guilt in the crime, Claire's parents are confidently defending their now only daughter. They filed a petition to have her sentence at least mitigated, and in court Claire's mother said, "I know Claire didn't want to do this. We lost Helen and we don't want to lose another daughter. We don't want her to be punished. We want her to get help. We don't want her to be imprisoned. We don't want that. We can't lose her too." The Miller family's defense relied on the testimony of several psychiatrists who stated in court that Claire suffered from psychosis, depression, and anxiety, and in a private conversation she told psychiatrists that on the night of the murder she heard some strange voices in her head that made her kill her sister. Also, in Claire's testimony, the character Michael Myers appeared more than once, the main villain of the Halloween movie series. According to the plot of the movie, he killed his own sister as a child, so somehow. In any case, prosecutors are unshakable in their statements. They are convinced that the text messages prove Claire's intentional desire to cause physical harm to others, which is why she should be recognized as a danger to others. I agree with them, to be honest. It's not very cool to be seen on the street with people who can just kill their sister for no reason, not to mention others. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. By the way, after the police released Claire's photo and the local media wrote several articles about her, the girl's followers began to recognize her from TikTok and made several videos about her, and in just a few days there were hundreds of similar TikToks. It's not surprising. It doesn't happen every day. After that, the number of Claire's followers almost doubled. But friends, never do this. Neither followers nor popularity nor money are worth it. You will ruin the life not only for yourself but for others. Moreover, shortly after this incident, TikTok deleted Claire's page because she violated their rules, which none of us read. But fortunately, or unfortunately, as they say, the internet remembers everything. There were a few subscribers who recorded Claire's entire page, and thanks to this we can recognize a seemingly ordinary girl as a cold-blooded killer whose motives are still unclear. Have you ever wondered what and who is behind the smiling face on the other side of the screen? Maybe it's time to do so. Nevertheless, Claire Miller's request to transfer the case to juvenile court was denied by Judge David Workman in July 2022, and according to prosecutors, she was tried as an adult. On March 10, 2023, 16-year-old Claire Miller was sentenced by Lancaster County Judge Jeffrey Wright from 12.5 to 40 years in prison after pleading guilty. She was charged with third-degree murder. Wright has labeled Claire as mentally ill, but not mentally retarded. Her parents don't deny that Claire Miller was suffering from a mental illness at the time of the offense, but that doesn't legally excuse the behavior. The sentence imposed holds her accountable for the crime she committed, but balances the nature of the offense, her young age, and her mental state at the time of the offense. Friends, if you watched this video till the end, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Write your impressions in the comments. I will be very interested to read. Also, guys, to get the first 1,000 subscribers, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. I believe we can do it.